Hello everyone, welcome back. This is my long overdue not lore video, aka character analysis of good old Dr. Baizhu. I know I'm late, I had a lot going on this month, as I'm sure a lot of you did, with the release of Honkai Star Rail. That new game grind has a serious grip on me right now. Simulated Universe is still beating my ass. I also got to attend Conquest this year in the Philippines, and it was an absolutely unforgettable experience, and I hope you guys enjoyed the vlog that will be coming out soon. So you can thank the Filipinos for this video getting out when it did, because they totally refreshed my love for content and Genshin and lore and all that. So shout out Philos, love you guys. Alright, we cannot talk about Baizhu without acknowledging the controversy around his characterization. We've got canon Baizhu, we've got fanon Baizhu, and frankly before this quest we had crumbs to work with trying to understand this dude. We know he's a doctor in Liyue, has his own pharmacy, he's got a dendro vision, but no association to Sumeru as far as we know. He takes care of Chi-Chi, but is also studying her, trying to understand her immortal nature. We know that he's borderline obsessed with the idea of immortality. He studied medicine under Hu Tao's uncle, who eventually was cut off from the family due to differing moral views. He's always got a snake around his neck, and speaks in a slightly nefarious or maybe mischievous undertone. It makes it sound like he might be up to something. He is suspicious, and he's meant to be so. A little bit of insider information, don't tell anyone I told you this, but I know from working on official Hoyo productions that they leave very little up to chance. Every live broadcast is heavily scripted, and most likely pre-recorded and edited to oblivion. I respect it. They want their productions to be perfect and reduce the risk of PR scandal. But I bring this up because on the 3.6 live stream, when Baizhu was announced as a playable character, Zach Aguilar made a point to ask about Baizhu's morals.
Oh, I see. So he's that kind of doctor.
What kind did you think he was?
Oh, I don't know. I kind of thought he might be the type of doctor who does good things, but with his own nefarious plan. You know, like, I can save you.
But for a price.
I guess he just seems kind of mysterious like that.
I guarantee that this was not an accident and was likely scripted in by Hoyoverse, and at the very least confirms that Hoyo acknowledges his suspicious nature. And it's not really that far-fetched. Everything from his character designs to notes about him from other characters indicate that he might not be totally trustworthy. Green is associated with envy, greed, and desire. Snakes, since the literal dawn of time, have been symbols of deception and sin. Chi-Chi's notes about Baizhu rubbed a lot of us the wrong way. We didn't get any indicator that he actually cared for her. In fact, we got the impression that he doesn't actually sincerely love her. You can see that in her character story right here. Chi-Chi seems to have accepted that he does some things with his own personal pursuits. Chi-Chi is stiff but not slow and has long realized this. However, she doesn't take it to heart. Perhaps she has seen too much or been alone too long, but what remains true is that she treasures his concern, even if there's some other motive behind it. I don't know, that made me a little sad when I read it. In her character story 3, it explains the mechanism of Chi-Chi's zombie state. Most zombies require another person to awaken them, but because Chi-Chi is a kind of self-governed zombie, she's able to give herself orders. However, it explains that Baizhu does in fact give Chi-Chi orders. The orders that are given are able to be canceled by hugging Chi-Chi from behind and telling her something like, I love you the most. The orders will dissipate just like that. It says here that, unfortunately, there's just no element of sincerity when Baizhu does it, leading to greatly reduced results. These things, especially anything related to Chi-Chi, always made me feel a little bit weird about Baizhu. Between caring for her as a child and studying her for a clue into mortality, we couldn't really tell which took precedent. This is kind of an aside, but I think it's worth bringing up since we're on the subject of morality and playable characters. I have seen a good chunk of Genshin players get irritated with others for quote-unquote liking Dottore while disliking or being suspicious of Baizhu. How can someone like an evil, selfish, sociopathic man who experimented more like tortured children, and many innocents across all his fragments, and also simultaneously dislike Baizhu? Even if Baizhu doesn't really care for Chi-Chi and is just caring for her so that he can research her, it's not like he's hurting her, right? Isn't Dottore so much worse? Well, yes. It's very clear to see that Dottore is 100%, probably 1,000 times worse than Baizhu, no matter what. But there's a key difference between them that makes this discourse complicated, and it has to do with how the game chooses to categorize their characters. Dottore is a villain. He is presented as a villain, an antagonist. We are actively working against him in much of the Sumeru storyline. This is clear-cut. It's also important to note that he is not a playable character, and we don't know if he ever will be. We as players can enjoy and appreciate him as a villain, and we need a villain of some kind to make stories, as we can't really have conflict or depth without them. Heroes can't really exist without villains. What is Star Wars without Darth Vader? Or Little Mermaid without Ursula? Baizhu, on the other hand, is not so clear-cut. He is, while mysterious and questionable, presented as a character we are supposed to like, and herein lies the problem. It is comfortable for us to like clear-cut villains because there's no pretense of morally aligning ourselves with them. But that's not as easy with quote-unquote good guys. And frankly, a lot of us haven't been able to see Baizhu as a good guy. At least not yet. I have been waiting to draw a verdict on Baizhu until Hoyoverse answers all the questions that they have created around his character. And that brings us, finally, to the quest itself. Now, with all the mystery that has surrounded Baizhu and how long we have waited for him to become playable, I figured Hoyo was waiting to release him until it came time for him to play his part in the Traveler's story. Truthfully, I was expecting a pretty dramatic, lore-heavy quest, and what we got instead was, to my surprise, a largely self-contained story. I'm not saying I didn't like it, because I really did enjoy this quest. I was just slightly disappointed, as I, and likely many of you, are chomping at the bits to get more Traveler story and lore. But that aside, Baizhu's story quest absolutely did what it was supposed to do. It gave us a well-rounded and precise understanding of who Baizhu is and clears the fog around his personality, his predicaments, and most important to me, his moral character. Okay, let's dive into it. I'm ready to learn. This quest begins as we meet little Ayu, crying out for help for his missing father. He's been sick for a while, but something has gone awry. His mom is also missing, having gone looking for herbs that she routinely gathers for her husband. We also find out here from Ayu that Boo Boo Pharmacy runs a clinic in Chainsaw Village, a mountaintop town comprised mostly of elderly and children who can't get down to Liyue Harbor normally. Ayu also calls him Uncle Baizhu. That was a nice little detail. After hearing a brief description of Ayu's reclusive mother, Baizhu seems to know her, calling her by the name Jiangli. No, not Zhongli. They're old acquaintances, and as such, he prepares to immediately help with the search. Also, Sino voices this NPC.
The city folks say there's no sign of him either.
Sino? That is Sino. Alejandro. Once we get to Chainsaw Village, we witness Ayu's father, Jia Liang, about to walk off a cliff. Thankfully, Hu Tao stops him.
Dear customer, Wangsheng Funeral Parlor does appreciate your patronage, but you needn't hasten the inevitable.
Jia Liang seems to have forgotten what he was up to and other important details. He is clearly in need of treatment, and we insist on taking him back to Boo Boo Pharmacy immediately. Hu Tao stops us, however, accusing Baizhu of spotting it right away and planning to use it for your own ends. Baizhu sighs, as she seems to be right, and admits to seeing God remains in Jia Liang's system. Huh? He insists that he has a special method of keeping Jia Liang stable, and more importantly, it is his master's dying wish to save this patient in particular.
It is the sworn duty of all who practice medicine to cure illnesses and save lives. What reason would I have to neglect a patient in need who is right there in front of me?
Keep that duty in mind. We are going to circle back to that. Baizhu offers to let Hu Tao supervise, and that seems to appease her for the time being. Back at the pharmacy, Baizhu discovers
blockages within the cardiovascular system, reduced blood flow and energy circulation.
Chengsheng suggests that we leave the room to let the doctor focus on his work. Hu Tao is understandably suspicious and warns him that she will come back if something seems off. We speak to Hu Tao and get some ancient lore about the quote-unquote ancient dead gods and the founding of the funeral parlor.
In the ancient world, dead gods were acting up, so our ancestors started purifying the air and burning the bodies of the deceased to guard the border between life and death. All the relevant know-how is still passed down to each generation.
This is why Hu Tao and Baizhu can both identify the god remains. She also explains that her grandpa and great-uncle met a pharmacist at Chenyu Vale, who must have
Cast some sort of spell on my great-uncle. because after that encounter, he suddenly announced he wanted to leave the family business and go practice medicine instead.
Apparently, he had a very ominous aura about him.
And on top of that, the kind of medicine practiced in the Chenyu Vale tradition goes against the natural order of things.
This explains her suspicion and distaste for Baizhu's supposed methods. Not that she even knows what they are, she's kind of just taking her grandpa's word for it. She points out, as we know, that Baizhu is obsessed with immortality. All these things certainly paint a bit of a sketchy picture. After treatment, Jialiang seems to be fully cognizant, seemingly in good health, and Baizhu is visibly worse for the wear. Changsheng makes him an excuse to leave the scene, and we catch Baizhu coughing it up on the bridge. He is not able to get it together in time for us not to notice, and Changsheng reveals the secret behind the treatment of the night prior. Baizhu did not actually heal Jialiang, rather,
Instead, he transferred some of his own life force to his patient to temporarily subdue the poison in his system.
Okay. I was wondering if it was going to be like this, some kind of like similar to force healing in Star Wars.
Changsheng isn't just Baizhu's pet, as we gathered. Rather, they have forged a contract, just like the rest of Baizhu's predecessors, that allows the host to use Changsheng's secret art, the transfer of life force from one to another. My best interpretation, based on the information we're given about this, is that it functions something like a blood transfusion. It doesn't necessarily reduce the person's lifespan, but rather their current life force, and can be regenerated with time. But that being said, no one's life force is unlimited at any given time, obviously, Baizhu notwithstanding, and Changsheng asks us to take care of Baizhu, check up on him from time to time to make sure he doesn't push himself too hard. At this point in the story quest, I made a prediction about what this story was going to tell us.
My prediction is that his search of immortality is so that he can
I was correct, so I'll just save that till the end. By the way, there is a Chinese legend called Legend of the White Snake, where a snake named Bai Susan transforms into a human and works in a medicine shop with her husband Shu Xian. Baizhu is likely based on this myth, his name bearing a clear resemblance to the name of the snake. Baizhu reveals that Jiang Li was a disciple with Baizhu in Chenyu Vale, and would have learned other secret arts. After inspecting the couple's home, we discover a bottle of God Remains. The poison is alive and is connected to the mother lode of the god it was taken from. It seems like Jia Liang was headed toward the mother lode when he almost walked off the cliff. And based on the evidence, we conclude that Jiang Li was the one poisoning her husband. The only way to clear the disease affecting Jia Liang is to destroy the source of the God Remains. We asked Changsheng if she has any more info she can share with us due to her long life, but Baizhu tells us that Changsheng has passed her prime.
Changsheng's memories and powers are not what they were in her prime. These days, she has to enter a contract with a mortal and share their life force just to sustain her own life. I fear that such ancient events are long gone from her memory by now.
Whoa.
Interesting.
What?
Not only does she lend herself for her secret art, she also balances qi and prolongs the life of the host. She even enables them to eat anything without upsetting their stomach. Paimon jokingly asks if she can borrow Changsheng for a few days when Baizhu is done with her. Baizhu retorts that,
Unfortunately, Changsheng's contract has strict requirements regarding the host's temperament.
Temperament.
None of her hosts have ever been exempted from these rules.
keep that in your back pockets for later. The traveler wonders why, if this is true, Baizhu seems to have such a weak constitution. Why is he sick, and why has his masters passed away at an early age? The story doesn't seem to quite add up. We seek out Zhao, who shows up immediately, of course, and who gives us directions to the ancient god Shi. He also takes a moment to share, but
immortality may not be the blessing that you imagine it to be.
I shall treasure your words of instruction, Master Adeptus.
Farewell.
Respectful.
Unfortunately, Jia Liang has taken a turn for the worst, and Baizhu will need to treat him again. It seems Baizhu has taken a great risk in treatment. It was risky even with Changsheng protecting him. Baizhu says that he had no other choice. Do you recall the words in the doctor's sworn duty?
It is the sworn duty of all who practice medicine to cure illnesses and save lives.
He seems to be living it out here. He believes it was more important to heal than to protect himself, even to this dangerous degree. Reunited outside, Baizhu assures us that he is fine, all the while barely able to get his words out. All I can think is that phrase, doctors make the worst patients. Turns out Jialiang is in fact suffering from 2 illnesses, and the poison, in fact, is managing his underlying heart condition, and he would die without it. It seems here we are in between a rock and a hard place with no perfect solution. Jiang Li has been doing the best she can to keep her husband alive, but her treatment will eventually catch up to him, as it seems to have done already. It's helping him and harming him as well. I think here already we can start to see parallels between Jialiang and Jiang Li's dilemma and Baizhu and Chengsheng's relationship. Chengsheng enables him to live long, have a balanced qi, to heal others. Theoretically, Baizhu should be very healthy, but because Baizhu seems to have, at very least, a great desire to heal and protect people, the access that Chengsheng gives him to healing methods is actually causing him to damage himself quite a bit. We will get more on that later.
I fear that the situation is just as that Adeptus described. In an effort to save Jialiang's life, Jiang Li has abandoned all regard for her own safety.
Does this sound like anyone else we know? Chengsheng calls this path of self-destruction and self-sacrifice
The inevitable course of fate. To sacrifice one's own life to save others. To go beyond human means in order to do the impossible. Whatever the cost may be.
We all set out to find Jiang Li, who seems to be in great danger due to prolonged contact with the god remains. Before we leave, Baizhu asks Chi-Chi to prepare some special medicine for his return.
Please add an extra measure of mistgrass pollen, and 1 dose each of the ingredients from the 3rd and 5th compartments of my medicine cabinet. I hope it works.
We make our way down into a cave, drawing closer to the mother lode and to Jiang Li, who is nearing death quickly. The only way to save her, according to Dr. Baizhu, is to destroy the god remains. However, that means that the poison/treatment in Jialiang's body will immediately lose its efficacy and he will die instead. It seems a choice must be made, and that of course will be left up to Jialiang. Baizhu offers to help, including treating her with the secret art right then and there, but that would be putting his own health at risk once again. After some reflection, Jialiang determines that he should have died over a decade ago, and
the fact that I've been around to see how you grow up is already a great blessing from Rex Lapis. If my choice can bring Jiang Li back,
Strongly mention.
Then even if I die,
Jialiang.
After cheating death for so long, it seems I've grown somewhat addicted to life.
The choice is clear. I think by now you have likely put together the pieces of this quest and how it all relates to Baizhu. He is searching for immortality while simultaneously zapping his own life force to save others. He wants to have his cake and eat it too.
I've seen many final farewells in my time, but I can never get used to it.
In the human realm, all things must come to an end. Is it not a fitting end to die for a worthy cause? At least, that's what generations of masters before you have always believed.
The path they chose was indeed a heroic one. But when I think of those who would willingly sacrifice themselves for others, I cannot help but think that theirs are the lives least deserving of death.
Jiang Ling says his final goodbyes to Jiang Li, and Baizhu disperses the god remains. We see the bottle losing its efficacy, and Jialiang falls to the ground. He seems to be remembering the first time Jiang Li brought him his medicine. He knew his memories would fade, and accepted it willingly, so he could see Ayu grow up.
How I would love to hear your voice one last time.
He fades away, finally being delivered into the patient hands of death. Psych! Well, he did die, but
How does it feel to come back to life?
As things stand now, you're more akin to a zombie than a human.
I'm a zombie?
he changified him. It was an experimental treatment in immortality. Ding, ding, ding. The fulcrum of saving others and Baizhu's personal interest. Baizhu repeats his creed once again.
All I know is that if I'm presented with a life that deserves to be saved, I will do everything in my power to save them.
Hu Tao seems to have been eavesdropping on this whole situation and has mixed feelings, but accepts it for the time being. She had hoped that they could depart to the afterlife together without regrets, but that will have to wait.
I'll just have to put it down in the books as a deferred consideration.
Baizhu and Jiangli catch up a little bit outside, reflecting on the paths they've chosen, and the similarities between their treatments for Jiangliang. It seems Baizhu's is a new and improved version. She is super impressed that he was able to reach that conclusion so easily.
Baizhu, be honest with me. Did you try out some of the poison on yourself?
Huh. Told you the truth would surface sooner or later.
Life force isn't the only thing that Changshang's contract lets you transfer between bodies, is it?
Nothing gets past you, Jiangli. You are correct. Besides life force, Changsheng's secret art also allows for the transfer of toxins and diseases. When I treated Jia Liang for the second time, I transferred some of the poison from his body into my own. Not only did this allow me to alleviate the burden on him, but it also gave me an opportunity to study its properties.
I risked one life to save another. And then you tried the poison on yourself too. It looks like both of us have ended up going the same way as our master before us. Are all disciples of Zhenyu Vale destined to turn out this way?
Destiny.
To live a short life, haven't given away our own for the sake of others?
It seems like this plagues all healers and physicians in some way, risking their lives and well-being for the sake of healing others. Baizhu is not sick in and of himself. Rather, he made himself sick, seeking to heal others and alleviate their pain. And now here we get all the answers to our burning questions about fate, short life, despite the long life that Changsheng provides. Now, I'm just gonna let us watch through this cutscene because it's one of my favorites, honestly, in the whole game. I'll zoom a little bit and throw some notes here and there.
It is a very long story.
Cutscene?
Long ago, when plagues ravaged the land,
Loud.
one doctor made a pledge to rid the world of pain and suffering. But even the most ingenious mortal medicine could not stay the tide of disease. And after working tirelessly for many years, even his dearest loved ones fell sick and bade their final farewell. Legends told of an herb lord in Zhenyu Vale who could cure any illness known to mankind. The doctor sought the herb lord, but found only a white snake, its breathing weak and its power all but spent.
Sign this contract and let our lives be joined. Then I will impart to you the secret art of healing. But be warned, this art will harm your own health.
With means beyond human ken, the doctor could now reverse the process of death. And yet, the time still came to say goodbye. Only now, the one departing was the doctor, his life force spent. His final act in life was to pass on the contract to his final patient, his favorite disciple. The disciple chose to dedicate their life to saving the lives of others. And generation upon generation followed in these footsteps. Since I inherited this contract, I've always respected the path taken by my predecessors and followed it myself unquestioningly. That is until I tried to use the art to save my own disciple's beloved. She begged me not to use up my own life force. She said that this art is a poison chalice an evil and unnatural practice. She did not wish to sacrifice one life for the sake of another, when both were lives she treasured. Only then did it occur to me. Did I not suffer when my master passed away, just as patients' families do at their loved one's deathbed? Are not the lives cut short by this contract just as worthy of saving as any patients? What is this contract to us? Medicine or poison? Alas, I no longer have enough time left to find the answer. I entrust to your care both Changsheng and this final question. May you find a remedy for this conundrum, which has ailed us so.
Time and again, no matter how much I try to warn them or balance their chi, I can never save them. And you? What's your answer?
If I abandoned the contract and left you without a host, what would happen?
I suppose I'd spend my final moments taking a nice nap on Mount Yaojun. Then I'd be reunited with my old friends and your predecessors.
Then it's decided. If there's a life in front of me that deserves to be saved, why shouldn't I do everything within my power to save it?
Once again, it's the same answer. So be it. Close your eyes. Who knows how many more people will take on this contract?
None. This contract will end with me.
This brings everything together. The dilemma of life and love, death and the double-edged sword of the Changsheng contract, and what happens when it meets a heart that is willing to save others. A person characterized by self-sacrifice. Now we finally understand Baizhu's fixation with immortality, and why Changsheng has managed to choose hosts who will all end up sacrificing themselves.
My contract has strict requirements on the host's natural temperament. All my hosts have been most pure of heart.
Pure of heart. The manifestation of Baizhu's pure heart is the desire to have it all. The ability to save not only his patients, but also Changsheng himself and any that would have come after him. No compromises, no worthy life left behind. Baizhu expresses once again that he is willing to go past natural medicine in search of healing and immortality. What is the difference between poison and medicine anyway?
But isn't wanting to have it all what makes us human? For a selfish moth like me, who's afraid of the flame yet yearns for the light, the only path forward is up towards the moon.
Apparently this moon, selfish moth little line is likely a sun and moon reference, which I should probably go research, but good news, this isn't a lore video, so go ahead and flex your knowledge in the comments and educate us all.
So now I understand. As I was listening, I wanted to understand the correlation and the relationship between his desire to heal people and his desire to study and understand more immortality. And if those things were one in the same, if healing was like a guise to achieve immortality for a nefarious purpose, his primary goal is to heal himself, sure, but also anyone who deserves to be saved, as well as Changsheng. And in order to do that permanently, immortality is what he is required, right? Right. If he saves himself, he can save more of others. Yeah, he wants to stop others from making the contract. And he said that the people who are most ready to sacrifice themselves are the people who least deserve to die. And that was also echoed by the chain of pure of heart hosts for Changsheng. Like, they're pure of heart, which ultimately leads them down a path of self-sacrifice. They said Paimon wouldn't be a good host. Oh, that's true. Yes, Changsheng did say there was a temperament requirement, which I thought was just like personality at the very least. We've gained another little Paimon tidbit. But according to Changsheng, Paimon is not pure of heart. It could be a joke, right? Though that's the thing. Everything related to Paimon, it could be a joke. It could all just be a joke. or it could have a very important deep meaning.
Baizhu refuses to bow down to the promise of fate. He refuses to choose between helping others and helping himself. Despite how it appears to us, they are not actually opposites. In fact, they are the solution to the same eternal problem. This is kind of like those plane safety videos where they tell you to put your own oxygen mask on before you attempt to assist others. And though it may seem selfish upon first glance, the reality is that if you don't put your own oxygen mask on first, there's a good chance that you'll pass out, unable in the end to help anyone. Baizhu is dedicated to solving this ancient problem, to find some loophole solution to those dying who don't deserve it, to seek out immortality and obtain it, but not for his own selfish gain, but because he is indeed pure of heart. I really enjoyed the parallels between Jialiang and Jiangli's dilemma and Baizhu's. I'm not typically appreciative of NPC impact, but this is definitely an exception for me. I feel like it really brought Baizhu's dilemma to life and gave us a glimpse into the heart of a very ambitious yet sacrificial healer. It seems Baizhu has cheated death once more. And who's to say he won't do it again? Well, there you have it. A brief recap and analysis of Baizhu's story quest. Hopefully it refreshed your memory and gave you maybe a little bit of insight on his character, maybe a few details you missed. I am glad to know that he does genuinely care for Chi-Chi and takes his role as her caretaker seriously. Adoption and found family is like very near and dear to my heart, so I couldn't really bear it if it was any other way. I really like Baizhu. I'm happy to have him on my account, and I'm happy to align myself with him morally. The next quest will be Yoimiya's second quest, which I will be streaming, I think, on her birthday, which is the 21st. So if you'd like to watch through the quest with us live, provide your comments. I would love to have you there. Otherwise, I'll see you over here for an analysis video, hopefully coming out more timely than this one. Sorry, like I said, lots of life stuff. All right, thank you so much for listening, for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please let me know if I missed anything in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!